Welcome to the Freedom Blueprint Show, a podcast about creating the lifestyle you want through your small business. Drawing on their experiences starting and running multi-million-dollar small businesses, three friends, John, Ryan, and Gabe, discuss how to have a business, but more importantly, a lifestyle you love.
Hello, party people! Welcome to our wonderful podcast with myself, Ryan, and Gabe. We are going to be talking today about a couple things. We're going to do an update about what in the hell we've been doing since we recorded this podcast last, which is about 2 weeks ago. So we do batch record these things. And then the other thing we're going to talk about if we have time is meetings. Death by meetings, how to run more efficient meetings, how to have a efficient and effective meeting, and whatever the hell else we think about when it comes to meetings.
Gabe, Gabe, I brought my happy juice today. Do you got yours?
I do. And I was like happy when he was talking about like what we did this past week, and then as soon as you talked about meetings, like my happiness level just went up.
Well, maybe those topics will go together then.
So first of all, what is everybody drinking? Can we start there?
Bulletproof coffee today.
Okay, bulletproof coffee. Gabe's on the caffeine.
And nicotine. And he's
on the nicotine.
Nicotine
right.
Toothpaste.
Mormon beer, root beer with caffeine in it.
Okay, root beer with caffeine. I have a cold brew coffee, light ice with some homemade almond milk, and a metal straw because it's better for the environment.
Nice.
Very sweet of you.
I'm very thoughtful. And so, Gabe, for a while though, weren't you not doing any kind of caffeine? Like you were just supernatural and just kind of doing the green juices and stuff?
No. I've been on caffeine for years. I typically just stick to 1 cup of coffee a day.
Okay.
And then I'll do matcha on my second cup. If I do a second cup, especially the days that I exercise, I'll do caffeine prior to workout.
Pre-workout?
Yeah, it's one of my favorite pre-workout supplements. But I ran out of matcha, so I'm having my second cup of bulletproof coffee, which is actually the first time I've ever done it, having it 2 times in a day.
Okay. Well, let us know the results when we're going to talk about health and vitality here on our next episode. So I think we should get into all that.
His eye starts twitching. That's why.
That's how you know you have the right amount of caffeine. So so I thought we could start, and this may suck, and we may not do this again, but with what we did over the last couple of weeks. So Ryan had the best 2 weeks ever. He did some business stuff, and he also was in the most wonderful place on earth.
Yeah, that's right. Disneyworld. So luckily, Disneyworld's open, and unfortunately, Disneyland's closed. It's closer to our house. But we spent 4 days. We went to all 4 parks, and unfortunately, we had to wear a mask the whole time. I don't know if that's what you guys want to debate about on this call, but I don't care your feeling on masks. Wearing a mask from day and night sucks. Like, it just sucks. And then keeping your 4-year-old's mask on the whole time is no fun.
Is that why when you were in Daytona Beach, was that separate from Disney World?
It was, yeah. Daytona was like nobody had masks on. It was bike week, so you got to imagine a pretty conservative crowd, right?
All the bikers were like, "Fuck that."
Yeah, they were not into masks, so yeah, there was no mask there. But yeah, so I'm actually glad. Like, I enjoy vacations that Europe's a lot like Disney World in my opinion. Like it's go, very not relaxing. But we were smart. My wife booked a Airbnb the last 3 days in Daytona Beach, and we're able to just relax. And I actually felt like, okay, I've had a vacation. I can come home. So it's been fun, man.
Cool.
Had a good couple of weeks, and kids love Disney World. They have a new Avatar ride and a new Star Wars ride that is like one of the coolest things I've ever done. I was joking before the call that I giggled for the first time in a long time.
Nice. Is that the one in Hollywood Studios, the Star Wars one?
Yes. It was Hollywood Studios. Yep. And it's like
a couple years ago.
It's like, those big Transformer robot dudes that are like 50 feet tall. Mm-hmm. They have a whole room full of those, and your little cart you're in like goes in between their legs, and then it flies up to their level and moves around. Like it's legit cool.
Are you a Star Wars nerd?
No, I'm not.
Yeah,
I am.
And then, and we were talking about the whole laughing thing and laughing more in life, right? Like, and I was at one of my weird personal development things that I do pretty regularly, like the group personal development thing. And
wait, is that thing that you went to?
Yeah, you should talk more about it. Is that the ayahuasca trip that you just went on?
Yeah, so it's a psychedelic thing. Yep. And
so like trying to talk about it like on the low, on the personal development thing.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if we were supposed to.
You want to go do ayahuasca.
Did clothes
went to go do.
did clothes come off?
It's not even ayahuasca. It's other shit like psilocybin, and like it's like a mix of shit. But you know, it's a similar kind of idea. And that's one of the things that came up for me and for other people that were there. Just like, why the fuck are we taking everything so seriously, right? You just think about stuff like, remember when I was a kid? Remember how much fun I had? I was goofy. I was silly. I was looking for opportunities all the time to have fun. And you just, as an adult, you just do not often, almost never do you fucking do that, right? When was the last time that you giggled like you were talking about? When was the last time that you just like laughed so hard you started crying? Right? Like we can go fucking years, especially as men.
Ryan cried not too long ago the other day on our show laughing.
Were we recording it or not? I don't remember.
I don't think so.
Yeah, we're recording. When we were laughing? Oh, I don't know. Yeah.
Ryan was crying. I don't even remember what the fuck you were laughing about.
I don't remember.
That's right.
Could not stop laughing. Oh, so bad.
So anyway, you know, that's kind of just an interesting thing that we're talking about. Something that I'm certainly trying to allow more in my life is a lot more fun, allow less seriousness and all that stuff. Maybe we can talk about that later or some other episode.
Now, do you remember when we were in Portugal? Like, it still stands out to me. I remember you kind of like pulled me aside. I don't know how better to say it, but like you kind of like got all like serious on me at one point, and you were like, man, you know what I admire about you, Ryan? And I don't remember how you said it. Maybe you can describe it better. But it was like, there are a lot of things on trips like that go wrong, right? Like, I don't remember what it was, John. Maybe you have a better recollection of it, but like we're supposed to be here at a certain time, or this got canceled, or that's closed, or whatever, right? And you were like, you just have such a good attitude about it, where normally I'd be like frustrated or upset about it. And you just like, do you remember what I'm trying to talk about? I don't remember the details of it, but that like feeling stands up in my head.
Huh. Yeah, I know there were the thing that I remember that stuck out to me about you from that trip was how much you don't give a shit about what other people think. And I remember being impressed by that. Like we were doing the kayaking thing in the water, and you were going up to all these random people, like asking them questions. You were like, you know, saying hi to people, you know, just doing all this crazy shit, and you were amusing yourself. You were having a great time. So I thought it was awesome how you were just having fucking fun. You were amusing yourself, and you just truly did not give a shit what people thought. I thought that was just fucking awesome. So I don't even remember this other thing, but I remember being struck by that.
So to sum up kind of my point in bringing that up is, I think one way to have fun is to not make a big deal out of issues when they come up. I think too often we like make too big of a deal out of issues when they come up, and like they let us affect our emotions.
One thing too, like I'll talk about business just because it's something that I can relate to, because that's where a lot of my mind goes. But like, I always try and tell my team too, like when there's something that comes up, like don't say like, hey, I have bad news, you know, or I have you know, because as soon as they say that, like I feel my gut like starting to get wrenchy, you know, and then they say it and I'm like, dude, it's not that bad. Like you didn't have to say that. Like you could have just said, yo, like I got the situation that came up. Here's what happened. Like, but
yeah, well, think about the fucking frame, you know, think about your perspective and your frame, right? Like you're already shooting yourself in the nuts when you are approaching it like that, right? Like it's not good or bad. It's what we make of it in our mind for the most part, most of this shit, you know what I mean? So yeah, I feel like that's, yeah.
And as a leader, it's just so important to lead by that example. Like oftentimes the employee is beating themselves over it and they're making it a bigger deal in their head than you. You know, they may come into your office with a problem thinking they may get fired, and your reaction to it of frustration, now they just take it to a whole nother level in their head, right? Where you weren't even going there. Yeah. Like being a leader, like taking things with stride and saying, okay, yeah, that is an issue. Let's figure out how to solve it. Let's figure this out. And kind of positive approach to it, I think is awesome for a team.
Yeah.
I mean, like being emotionally like a business is ultimately, in my opinion, a reflection of the owner. Absolutely. Right. And that's been said, right? It's like the personality strengths, the personality flaws the owner has are sort of magnified and amplified in the business. So in a lot of ways, business is cool because it's like, it's your own personal growth. Like if you get more emotionally mature, more stable, less reactive to the kind of shit you're talking about, to these negative things, you then are such a better leader and manager and example for your people. You both manage them better because you're not freaking out and all emotionally reactive and feel all sorts of ways in your body. And you're also showing them an amazing example of how to be. So
dude, it's funny because I have the privilege of coaching, and I know you do too, Ryan. several entrepreneurs in the real estate space. And dude, it's so funny. Like, I see these chaotic, like type A entrepreneurs that like, they just have no system and structure to their lives and they're just everywhere. And then when I go and I step in and I observe their businesses, it's the same exact thing. Like, it's everywhere. They got all these sales coming in and they don't know how to like move them. I'm like, when's the last time you reviewed your financials? Or like, financials? Like, I don't even got a bookkeeper. And I'm like, dude, I'm like, how can you run a business like this? Like, I'm getting overwhelmed just you telling me the stuff, you know?
Well, let's stay on this subject for a second and kind of convert meetings into this. I'm curious, you guys, and I've had the cool opportunity I'm purchasing this business and I've been sitting in on their level 10s as a fly on the wall, and they do them over Zoom. So I can just kind of be there listening. And it's been really cool to watch different cultures and how they work. So I'm curious from your guys' perspective, I might bring that back up here in a second, but from your perspective as a leader, when two people on the leadership team on your weekly meeting or in any meeting you're in with the team, when they start having a verbal argument and emotions get high between two people, what do you guys do as a leader, and what's the appropriate thing to do?
I don't know if you've ever had that experience.
Yeah, I mean, well, I've kind of been in it myself, but I would just say, like, just as an outsider looking in, if I see that happen, I think the appropriate thing to do is just kind of let it unfold, and just let it pan out and then watch it happen, and then if there's tension still at the end of it, don't let the meeting close without the tension being resolved. Like, make sure that everyone feels understood and heard. And even if they disagree with whatever was, whatever decision had to be made or however something was handled, and if they need to apologize for something, all those things are done. So there's no more like resentment or bad blood being held after that meeting, So
I often think sometimes it's kind of a bigger issue of something going on, right? Where somebody has either something personally going on that's affecting business and their emotions at work, or there's more likely there's a lack of trust and care within the team.
Mm-hmm.
And something that I try to do is, like, we went to Vegas together last year. We all go, bowling together. We try to go do things together outside of work. In a weird way, doing activities as a leadership team together builds
a team. Absolutely.
Builds empathy within the team.
For sure.
Right?
Friendship, bond.
Yeah. Like, you start treating the people differently. You start understanding them differently, right? And treating them differently.
Right.
We've done like the Tony Robbins things. Yeah. We did the Tony Robbins things as a team together, the UPW or whatever. We've done a lot of personal development events together, but I can tell you that, like, when you do those events with people and you're like there going through it with them, it's totally different after. Like, your level of respect and admiration for the person deepens. And just the way you see them and treat them, and
So to come full circle, is it okay to do psychedelic stuff with your team, John?
I would fucking love to. Are you kidding me? So, you want to talk about, a book I just read about resolving conflict. The big thing is, like, are you treating somebody as a human being or treating them as an object? And that's a lot like you're talking about, right?
I just read that same book.
By the Arbinger Institute?
Yes, I love that company.
Oh, damn. Yeah,
if you're listening to this right now, go download all the Arbinger Institute books. They're awesome.
Fucking amazing, right? And I super love it too, because it really aligns with this whole, like, consciousness, like, spirituality, just trying to be a nicer, kinder person thing I'm doing, like, personally. So yeah, fucking amazing. And just like you said, right? It's like, so why does, the team, the stuff where you're getting together, you're having fun, or even more than that, Gabe, like you're talking about, the next level is, like, you're being vulnerable. You're sharing personal details about yourself, right? You're humanizing each other. Yeah, their teams being humanized to you, you to them to each other. And so, of course, all of this, the foundational aspect of all of this, all business, is human fucking relationships. And when you make those better and deeper and stronger and richer, yeah, I mean, how can that go wrong?
It's really interesting you brought that up, because I read those books, or I listened to two of the books. It was ironically a different book than what you listened to, but very similar subject, same company.
Was that one of the ones you posted the other day that I wrote to my book list or whatever?
Yeah. Really, really good.
I posted it too. We both did, apparently. But anyway,
you copied me.
I was a different book. I was same company. I was interviewing a few of the people from this company I'm buying, and they have a culture issue at this company.
Mm-hmm.
And my biggest takeaway is they feel like the owner treats them as an object, not as a person. Like, that's my takeaway from it.
Wow.
That's the issue. Those are the issues. And the owner is, like you said, Gabe, he's scatterbrained. Like, he runs so fast and in so many different directions at all times and changes the direction constantly. By the time they catch up over here, he's already moving over to this way.
He's moving somewhere else.
And there's no clarity. There's no like accountability. I mean, there's a lot of issues going on.
And then you also have, I guess I've seen both sides. You have that. And then you also have the side of a person has their own personal issues, and they take it out on you. And I've seen that too, where, someone for whatever reason, like I've been dealing with this, and this person actually just left my team recently. And kind of glad she was with me for 5 years, and overall was a great employee, but I'm glad she left. But
I know who you're talking about.
Huh?
I know who you're talking about.
No, it's not that one. It's not that one. It's not that one. And long story short, like this was a person that, even though all the trust that you can build with them, like if you tell her something, if I say something to her one-on-one with me and her, it's received okay. But in any meeting environment with other people, if something is said to her, as far as like any feedback, like, hey, why'd you do this? Or, hey, like, what were you thinking about when you made that decision? Anything like that? Reaction right away, like just triggers, like person gets super, super defensive and just lashes out on you. Like, and doesn't like, it's like, whoa, like I'm not attacking you. It's a sincere question, And yeah, that can be tough sometimes to deal with
Can I
too.
respond to that?
Sure.
So, John, I had one of the girls on this team read the Outward book. That's another Arbiter Institute book,
Yeah.
Outward. And she's dealing with an issue. She's the COO, and she's dealing with an issue with someone within the team. And she read the book, listened to it within 2 days, was super excited about it, then had the meeting with this person and handled it really poorly. And I said, so, how do you marry those two things? She's like, well, I love the book and I tried it. And I realized after the meeting, like, wow, I did not follow what I was supposed to do. But it was like good for her to at least like recognize now what she's doing wrong. Like the book helped her realize, like just changing the way you feel is not easy. Reading these books doesn't just change the way you feel when people do things.
For sure.
However, it sometimes helps you recognize that, oh, the book said I would do this. And when I feel this way, I'm not supposed to do this or do that.
Right.
And that's something that I want to start doing with my teams, John, is have them go through the Arbiter Institute, my management team.
Yeah.
Have them
awesome, dude. Like that she actually still took action, read the book, which is hard to get people to do sometimes, and read it that fast. Because I can get employees to read books, but sometimes it takes them a whole quarter to freaking go down just a simple book and then actually implemented it right away.
She did a horrible job implementing it, but she recognized.
That's fine, but she learned. But now she's going to learn. She's getting feedback. That's amazing.
Right. Yeah,
so
and also, sorry, Gabe, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
And also like that, like self-compassion and self-kindness, right? So she read the book, she had positive intent, she was trying to do this, she totally fucked it up. Okay, so first of all, like don't beat yourself up, because that's like the worst thing that you can do. It's going to make you not just want to avoid the whole subject entirely. Like being kind, being compassionate to herself, and as a leader of her, which is challenging, really fucking hard for me in particular, being compassionate to her about it, being more encouraging. It's okay, try again. Because with behavior change, especially when it's related to managing our emotional state, like these emotions, we can't really control a lot of times. They're going to come up. A lot of times it's how you respond to those emotions.
Right.
And just being aware and catching those emotions, catching your reaction to that emotion. And before you react, right, it's like that little space that you have to do something different, and that's where a lot of this shit kind of comes in, which is fucking hard, but a lot of it takes practice, it takes
an art. Dude, but just the fact that she is now conscious and she's taking self-responsibility for, now she is aware that she did something wrong and she addressed the situation ineffectively, it's a game changer. Because before it's like, well, no, it's them, it's their fault. Like I didn't do anything wrong, and like now she has a different. She's looking at it differently, and
you don't even need to read Outward, Gabe. That's all Outward talks about. It's that same thing you just said. It's like I kind of looking inward and not. If you blame people, anytime blame comes out of your mouth, that there's a problem.
It's a problem. Yeah.
Yep. That's like
it's funny because as a leader, most leaders aren't willing to deal with conflict, and that's a fault that a lot of leaders have. They hate having to deal with conflict.
Right. And because your fear, right? I get it all the time. Like your fear is, if I deal with it, this person may be pissed off and I'm going to lower his morale, right? That's a fear. That's a legitimate fear that I experience all the time. Like, man, if I deal with this now, he may get pissed off at me. And then if he gets pissed off, he's not going to work hard today. Or, you know what I mean? That's like a legitimate fear that comes to you.
Sweep things under the rug. I easily could have said, hey, how did it go? Okay, try better next time. Like, I could have just swept that under the rug and move on. But I like really dug deep into it. And I dealt with the conflict with her. Like, it didn't go well. Why didn't it go well? What happened? Tell me more about that. Like, what could we do different? Like, those are really like emotional. I'm dealing with an emotional level with her of baggage that she's grown up with for years, right? And those aren't easy conversations to have as a leader, but they're very important to grow your people.
Yeah, I mean,
there's some of the two greatest things that I'm learning. I haven't said I've learned because it's a process, but like, is always lead with questions like you're mentioning, right? So never assume anything, or don't even say what they did. Just ask them a question and let it come from them. There's something you said the other day, Ryan, which it was super interesting. I could share a story with you, John, but you had mentioned this the other day, and I think it had to do more with sales, but this also applies to employees, where if it comes from the boss, they don't believe you. If it comes from their peers, they're more likely to believe you. And if it comes from them, it's like truth, you know? So like when you ask questions, you're more trying to let it come from them so they can believe it as truth. But like I was telling Paul, who connected with Kayla the other day, and I was telling him, I'm like, dude, you can bring in $1 million from doing this if you just focus on this and you do nothing else and just do this. And he didn't believe me. He's like, you're way too like overly optimistic. Like, that's not going to happen. And he started having all these self-limiting beliefs or whatever. And I'm like, fuck, how do I get around this? Like, someone can't achieve what I want them to achieve if they think like that.
They're not buying in, right? That's the word that you're looking for. How do I get them to buy in?
They're not buying in. So I'm like, you know what? What if it comes from somebody else? Like, what if I give him a resource that he can talk to on his own and get it from someone else? And that's what I did. I'm like, hey, John, can you connect me with this person? And sure enough, he calls me the next day like, dude, this is amazing. Like, and he's like, my mind is blowing open. I'm like, dude, I told you the same exact shit 2 days ago.
There you go.
Like nothing
It's
changed.
funny. As a parent, Gabe, you probably realize this. It's the same concept with kids.
Yeah.
Like, kids do much better with a coach than they do having their parent as a coach.
Right.
Yeah.
Right?
So that's
It's
amazing.
a problem I have with my wife all the time. Like, I will suggest something. I just got my brother-in-law are on this trip together. We were both complaining about our wives. Like, I'll suggest something. My wife thinks it's the worst idea in the world. And then like the next day, her sister will suggest the same exact thing. And she'll be like, oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's exactly like that. It's a key thing in leadership. Like if you understand that, sometimes you just have to connect your people with resources versus other than yourself and let them learn from the resource versus from yourself.
Yeah,
Or
and that's why
questions and see if they come up with the answers, right?
Right.
And that's why competition. And that's why competition is so important too, right? In roles, like having one person in a role is so difficult because they have no comparison, right? Like if there's competition, if there's that other person in the company doing their same job who's doing better than them, they can't, right? Yeah. Right? They can't, blame nearly as easily external factors for their lack of performance when someone else in the same, so it's so important.
The blame game in any culture is freaking toxic. Oh. If you have somebody in your culture that's blaming people, you need to get them out of your culture or change them. I have a question for you guys, though. How do you get buy-in from your teams during
what?
Meetings. How do you get them to buy in?
I mean, I guess it depends, man. It depends on what it is that you're getting them to buy into,
Let me ask you this. Do you feel like it should be it's a democracy where everybody gets a vote? Or does some person responsible for making a final decision, and that's the decision no matter what the vote is?
For me, it's a dictatorship, which is not the most effective management method, clearly. Yeah. But for me, it's a dictatorship, which I think is not ideal.
We do our best to try and run it like a meritocracy because the thing is that with the dictatorship, they'll do what you tell them to do if they're a good employee. I mean, if they don't, then they got to fucking go, obviously. But they'll never do it to the capacity that they would if they were bought in. Like if it comes from them,
Agreed.
With these questions, guys, is how do we get buy-in? So what do you do, Gabe? How do you run it? Stop using big words that nobody understands.
Yeah, I mean, you got to know. First off, like it requires understanding who the audience is, and who you're dealing with. like I wouldn't get buy-in on something from person A the same way I would get from person B. So the more I understand my team, one of the things that I do with everyone in my team that directly reports to me is I meet with them one-on-one twice a month. And we just talk about their personal goals. I help them all with their personal goals, and one of them the other day in the last quarter said, I love this because I feel like I have a free coach that like gives me awesome advice and like helps me on my shit. And like, and I'm being paid to have this coach. Like, he's like, that's a win-win. But like, I have to understand them individually because the way that I would get them to buy in is based on that is different versus everybody. Right. So like, I know for one person, like this would excite them. And so if that excites them, I'm going to use that more, and kind of highlight those things. And versus like someone else, if I know they're not going to like something, I may even address that thing up front of why they may not like it, and then kind of trying to spin it in a different way to kind of help them like digest it more or in a sense, or just ask them, hey, look, I'm open to other ways of doing this. I know you're not going to like this, but like, show me how, because I can't figure it out. Like, this is the best that I can come up with, and kind of let them figure it out. If they can't figure it out, then they're like, yeah, I guess we got no choice. Like, this is what we're going to have to do. So, it leads with questions. It's understanding the person that you're dealing with. And yeah, I think it really just comes down to understanding your people,
I think that's great, by the way, because I think different people have different love languages. They also have different business love languages. There's a better word for that. But my point is, some people just feel understood differently, right? They need more hand holding versus other people, yada, yada.
And sometimes what I'll do too, like I've noticed, like I get way better buy-in if it's something big, like really big, before I make it public, I'll reach out to them real fast individually and ask for their advice. And be like, hey, you know what? Like, I'm thinking of doing this thing. It's going to change a lot of things up. But here's what I love about this. Here's why I'm really excited about this. Here's what I see the downsides are. What's your take on it? What's your perspective? What do you think about this? And then we'll go through it. And then I'm like selling them individually. So by the time I announce it publicly, they're not getting caught with a surprise and like, oh my God, like, then they start getting overwhelmed or like, why are we changing or whatever,
So my opinion is that everybody that wants to be heard needs to be heard. And as a leader, you need to learn to communicate. I had a girl that worked for me named Bianca, and she was very introverted, didn't want to screw up, had never really been in management before. And she was in these really important meetings. So she's kind of nervous, and I had to learn to communicate with her in a way that helped her feel comfortable to communicate with the team and to express her ideas. She had great ideas, but she would be the person that would sit in the corner quiet the whole time. Right. And I had to just train her about that. But more importantly, my opinion, and it might be different than the way you guys think, is it's somewhere in the middle of everybody votes and a dictatorship. I think everybody should be heard, and the leader should pull out of everyone in an appropriate way people's opinions if they have them on an issue. But at the end of the day, the leader makes the decision, and the team needs to buy in.
Yeah. And the leader can't be an asshole about it.
To make the call and say, we're going this route, as long as everybody's been heard. Now, I think the way to make that work better is to explain to people up front, that's what's happening. And that's how this is run here. And these are the expectations of these meetings. Because if you're just doing it without explaining why, people might think, well, I felt like 4 people liked it and 2 didn't. So why did we go that way? Like, you got to kind of walk them through at the beginning what the expectations are for meetings.
And sometimes you also just let them know at the end, like, hey, like, this is the route we're going to go. I've heard all your opinions. I think this is the way to go. However, I am open to changing if I'm wrong and reconsidering at this point in time. But let's try this for now. Like, work with me on this, guys. Let's see it through this stage of view. And then again, if, when we get to here, we'll reevaluate again.
Let me throw another nugget in here. 2 things. The person that's talking and running the meeting should not be the person that's taking notes and moving the screen around and whatever.
For sure.
Ever. 2 totally different people. I've seen that happen too often. More importantly, when a decision is made, it is extremely important that you, especially big decisions, you ask people in the room to clarify what they understand the new process is.
Yeah.
And I always take that time to do it. And I am amazed, like literally 80% of the time, every once in a while we'll get it okay, but 80% of the time we have to go revisit it and re-clarify it just to make sure
they understood something different than what you said. And sometimes you might even communicate something that is not what you're thinking,
Totally.
And it happens. Yeah, that's a big one. Another big one too for me, and it's hard, especially for me, and because in a virtual environment where it's so easy to write and send a message, when you see something, especially if something triggers you, like if you're looking at a sales rep or someone in your team that makes a mistake or does something that they're slipping. It's so easy to just write something right away and express yourself. And it's so hard to just kind of just put a pause on that, maybe even write it down and wait.
I just did it to John as we're talking.
He did.
Yeah. And maybe just wait a day just so the emotions settle. So that way, the way that you deal with it is way more level and clear headed. That is extremely difficult for me to do. Cause I get anxious and I'm like, if I don't deal with it now, I'm going to forget and I'm never going to deal with it again. That's one of the limiting beliefs I tell myself.
I'm curious what your nuggets are, John, from meetings, but here's another good nugget is people need to turn their freaking phones off and not be on their phone in meetings.
I agree.
You do not allow that.
It's a distraction. I agree.
What are some nuggets for your meetings, John? What do you do to have successful meetings?
I like what you guys said. I think that's good.
I mean, for us, we always have an agenda for every meeting, So
I'm starting to do that, Gabe, with individual meetings with random people. Hey, before we start, let's create an agenda of what our goals are to get out of this.
So Dan Sullivan has this thing that he talks about where if someone requests a one-on-one, I forgot what he calls it. There's a specific sheet he gives them where they have to thoroughly think about what the problem is, what the solution is, what other options are. They have to think through it thoroughly. So by the time it comes to you, they're super prepared and you can, boom, just hammer it. And what he tells them is if you don't want to go through the hassle of doing that, then it tells me that the meeting with me is not important. Because if it's important, you'd actually go through it. That's something that I haven't implemented yet, but I thought it was a good idea to have. But agenda, designating a person. Also, one thing for me too, that's that same person, Ryan, that you talked about, writing the notes and taking, making sure that if there's agreements, there's someone listing the tasks down that need to get done. And, that person next meeting is going back. If there's a recurring meeting going on, hey, were these tasks done? Did people follow through? And then a timekeeper, dude, if I cannot timekeep at all, and if we're going through a meetings and there's not a timekeeper to say, hey, guys, here's the agenda, we're past topic, we got to move on. If not, your meetings they just take way longer than what they're supposed to.
So, I'll throw one thing in on this is the to-dos from the meeting, start with those in the following week's meeting. Right. Whatever they were. Right. So that's an easy one. You just start with those. And if something really needs to get done from a meeting, I'll designate someone on my team to be the one who's responsible for fixing that. And then they'll present that in the meeting at the beginning of the following meeting, what they did to fix it. And I'll make sure in that meeting that it was done correctly. So just for accountability and making sure it gets done.
And I love what you said about the agenda, Gabe. I think too many teams get together for their weekly meeting and say, all right, let's create the agenda. What do we want to talk about today? Let's make a list together. They need to come prepared beforehand and have a whole list of items broken down. I've taken that to the next level. I haven't actually implemented this. I'm going to do it with this new company I'm buying. But you know how we have the issues list? Kind of, I don't know if you guys run that, but it's kind of an issues list with traction. Anyone listening to this, it's something all three of us do. It's kind of a structure to your weekly meetings. I kind of broke the issue down into three or four different parts that I want my team coming prepared with. It's the current process, the problem with the current process, the possible solutions to that problem, the benefit to the company for implementing those solutions, and the dollar amount impact of implementing the solution.
I love that. So that's part of your issue section just on steroids, basically. Before you list the issue, you have to tell me, clearly specify what the issue is, what is it costing us, what the upside is for the solution, and what the solution you propose.
Yeah, because I think sometimes you look at these things and you're like, oh, there's really no dollar impact to the right. And the other times you're like, holy crap, that's a $200,000 impact. It helps your department managers think financially.
Yeah, that's good, right? Because that is an issue that I certainly run into. I'm sure you guys do too, is that people are spending too much time on things that aren't important and not nearly enough times on things that are important. This sort of prioritization is all skewed. So I think having them put a dollar value on that, like you said, is smart. Yeah, I like that multi-step issues list thing quite a bit. Now, we are at 33 minutes, let's say. Do we want to keep going? Do we want to stop the podcast, go to the next topic? What do we want to do?
I've got one thing I want to bring up. But Gabe,
I got one last thing on the topic, and I'm good.
Cool.
You go first, Gabe.
I'm the timekeeper.
The last thing I want to talk about, I guess, is the meeting rhythm, right? Or the meeting pulses that you want to have. Like we pretty much follow the scaling up methodologies. I mean, I think it's tried and proven, like it really works. So the meetings that we do have is, and I think the most important one, honestly, of all the meetings is a daily huddle. I think that's the most important one. And on the daily huddle, everybody has one or two critical numbers. We assign a color to it. So we know, okay, well, green means you're on track. Yellow means you're a little concerned, but you're not, like, you're there. It's a warning sign. And then red's like, yo, I'm way off track. We share good news. What's something good that happened yesterday? It could be personal or professional. And then we share stucks. So it's like, hey, I got stuck on a file I'm working on, like, this didn't happen, or, hey, I need to get with you, Paul, or I need to get with you because this happened. And it just like lets people know things got to get done, streamlines communication. And then as a business owner, it just gives you like super key insights as to what's going on. And I like to hear the priorities, because sometimes I'll hear people's priorities for the day and I'll call them after and I'm like, hey, like, why are you focused on this? This is a fucking waste of time for you. Like, why are you trying to do this when like your job is doing this? And like, this makes no sense. Either delegate it or just don't do it.
Weekly meeting, you had all these things to do and none of those are on your priority list.
Right. Yeah. So you have that. So we do the daily. That's the most important. Then we have 2 weeklies where one is just for the regular team. And that's where we're solving like more operational, tactical type stuff, processes and things like that. And then one for the leadership team, which is typically just me and Omer. And we're talking more strategy, like, our brand promise or, our org chart or like, higher level things that we want to push forward. And then we have a monthly where we meet once a month, go over all the finances, and again, handle a strategic topic and an educational topic as well. So we'll bring something that meeting to learn, like what can we learn that's going to help us get to whatever rocks we have or whatever, strategic thing that we're trying to get to this year. And then the quarterly, we have 2 quarterlies as well, one for the team and then one just for the leaders,
I think that's great.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, was there something else, Ryan, that you wanted to talk about?
I'll leave my nuggets for another day. But
cliffhanger.
I'm glad you brought up the daily huddle, Gabe. I think that's something a lot of teams wish they implemented, and they don't really know what to talk about in those daily huddles. I know our friend Alex, he does some really cool stuff in his. I'm not as goofy as Alex is. I think a lot of us kind of wish we were sometimes. He is a little kid at heart. And, he's like, they sing songs and karaoke. They do all kind of crazy stuff in their daily huddles. Yeah. So you can make them fun. They don't always have to be serious, but, I'm glad you brought that up, Gabe. I think that if you're not doing daily huddles and you're listening to this, that is definitely a huge benefit to a company.
Yeah, and a really nice format, Gabe, to follow. So yeah, I think that's good. Probably a good place to end if you guys are good with that. And certainly appreciate everybody. And I think some good stuff about meetings.
Cool. Peace.